Greetings, I'm Walter D. Donnie Kennedy, Chief of Heritage Operations for the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and this is Commander's Comment for June 2020, and we're here with Commander-in-Chief Paul Gramlin Jr. And,
Hello, Donnie.
Good to see you again.
Well, we're slowly trying to get back into our normal routine here.
Well, I'm glad to see that the coronavirus haven't gotten you.
Yeah, or you either.
Oh, well, no great loss, some people would say. All right, we've had a lot going on, Commander,
Yes.
as I think everybody knows here. This is early June, and I need just to kind of ask you a few questions to get started. But before we get started, I just want to make a quick statement. I want to remind people, because we have a lot of protests going on now, and we hear people talking about peaceful protests, peaceful protests. I want you to always remember that all lawful protests are peaceful,
Right.
but all peaceful protests are not necessarily lawful.
No.
So there is a difference. Just because someone says we're having a peaceful protest, that does not mean it is lawful.
Be on guard.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually that's a sign they're up to some trouble here. So, Commander, let me just ask you frankly right from the start, what is the Sons of Confederate Veterans, what is their position on these attacks on our monuments?
Well, for one, we realize that the attacks, we hear the excuses, they're protesting, they're attacking the monument because of this gentleman, Mr. Floyd, that was killed by the police department in a Yankee town.
Right.
But it happened in the upstate, in the northern state, but because he was, met his demise at the hands of the police department, now everyone thinks that it's okay to run amok on national or Confederate monuments. This kind of reminds me of what happened 5 years ago in Charleston, South Carolina, when that crazed idiot shut up a church, and then someone photoshopped him with a battle flag, and everything went crazy. It's like our opponents, our enemies, are sitting on a button, and they're looking for this one incident to happen. And so this incident happened 5 years ago. They pushed a button. We saw what happened.
They go nuclear on Confederate.
And last week we saw what happened in Minneapolis. They pushed a button, everything at one time. We're being bombarded by these riots and these protests and looters. And now the politicians are trying to appease these criminals by removing our Confederate monuments. And, I just got to talking to a reporter in Virginia, and he was wanting to know how we felt about the monument. And I gave him a quick history lesson. And then he kind of pushed my button when he said the governor was doing this to appease and bring the people, the citizens together and try to work on the division between people in the South. And I let him know real quickly that, anytime someone moves a Lee, Jackson, or any Southern Confederate statue or monument, that is the quickest way to enlarge that division.
Correct.
It is not going to help. And he asked, and I was asked, well, how do you think we ought to attack the problem? I said, the best thing I can think of is education.
But the education must be truthful.
Exactly.
It cannot be partisan politics, and what we've had, as you well know, with the Confederate monument is partisan left-wing propaganda.
And I even told him, I said, the education or the lack of education that the students are getting now, I said, it doesn't work. What they're getting from the schools, at home, I said, they're being taught the wrong thing. They're being taught to hate. Right. I said, these kids, these youngsters growing up, they don't come out and grow up hating something. It's taught to them.
Correct.
And I told this reporter, and until we fix that problem, nothing's going to change, which is why we need to take back the narrative.
Take back the narrative. And another point that I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, that these monuments, it's not just Confederate monuments now. Churches were burned here. St. John's, I believe, Episcopal Church in Washington. But the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was desecrated. you know, we've got all these other, it's what you and I have been talking
Yes.
about, attacks on traditional American values. We see it, right?
You know, it's funny, toward the end of this interview I had with this reporter, I brought that up about, you know, the other monuments, World War One, II, about the Vietnam War,
Yeah.
the wall being vandalized, and told them that, you know, it just wasn't Confederate monuments that being vandalized and removed. I said, so what's your answer for that? Anyway, he ended the interview at that point.
It didn't fit his narrative, I don't think.
No, it did
Probably
not.
not. No. Well, let me ask this. I get a lot of inquiries from people calling me and emailing me, say, what is the SCV doing to protect our monuments?
Well, Donnie, you know as well as I do that we have been doing everything that we personally can do to get the word out there to support the the Confederate Legion and make Dixie great again. We've talked all over the country. We put it on Commander's Comments. We pushed it in the Confederate Veteran. We need their help. We've got to have their help to take back the narrative, and that's how this is going to change.
Correct.
You know, as we see with the media here recently, that, you know, they're even promoting, I'd go as far as saying is promoting some of the violence that's going on and pushing it, and that kind of narrative will never, you know, it will never work. And we've got to take back the narrative and educate people.
Getting back to the Virginia situation, I saw a poll recently in Virginia where almost 65% of the people in Virginia support maintaining those
Right.
monuments. Our problem right now is that the other side, they have people who will speak loudly for them. We on our side do not. So we've got to educate, motivate, and activate our people.
And not only does the other side have people speak for them, they have other side that will tear things up
Yeah.
to intimidate the politicians and those that kind of hold the purse strings, if you will, on monuments and that kind of thing. So they will intimidate these politicians. We saw it in Alabama.
Yeah.
Look what happened in Alabama. They got intimidated to where they backed off and kind of just let them have it. Yeah.
Well, that's why we've been trying to say we must take back the narrative. We must get our message out to our people because we have a majority support, even in Virginia, but those people are not activated. And that's why the Confederate Legion, your idea of the Southern Victory Campaign to push this out to the general public, it is so vital. That's how the SCV is not a militia organization.
No,
we don't
we're not
have
militia, we're not
guns
a
and
military.
cannons that we can circle around monuments and protect them.
As an organization.
As an organization. Individuals can do whatever
Exactly.
but as an organization we do not.
If an individual, whoever wants to, you know, get their assault rifle, their pistol, or their machete, or their bow and arrow. I see one guy with a bow and arrow, you know, on the news. But they want to go stand in front of a monument and protect it armed. That is their decision.
Right.
That's their business. We are all adults. You know, they don't need me to tell them this or that. Don't do this, do that. And, you know, just for the record, I am not going to tell any member to go either to a monument, a plantation house, or anything. I'm not going to tell any member to put themselves in harm's way. Because, you know, the liability as far as our organization, which is what I have to look at first.
Right.
And so we cannot be straddled without liability. But, like I said, we're all adults. We make our own decisions. The only thing is, if you put yourself in harm's way, don't be representing the SCV.
Right. Now, you know, you mentioned plantation houses. I saw where the Antifa types, they were planning on now, once they get the Confederate monuments destroyed, going after plantation homes and having they're either destroyed, burned, or reinterpreted in a manner that they would approve of. So it's not just monuments. It's not just the quote Civil War thing.
Southern.
You're right.
So
It is traditional American values that
Mhm.
are under attack, and if we don't stop it here, it will only get worse.
Yeah, well, it's been getting worse. You know, ever since I talked to the Southern Union veterans 2 years ago, and I told them we had a common enemy,
Right.
and they want to eradicate the moral fabric of this country. And since those 2 years, we have seen it more and more and more until what we've seen. You know, the end of May, 1st of June.
Right.
You've seen what has happened, and if nothing convinces our membership and conservatives, Christians, whoever that's on our side,
Right.
if nothing convinces them more so that elections have consequences,
Oh, yes.
all you got to do is look at Virginia.
Right, right. Because too many people stayed home at Virginia.
Yeah.
Too many people did not really consider the ramifications.
They
of
did the
voting
same
or
thing in
not voting.
Louisiana.
Oh, did we now?
Yes, yes,
Did you
they
have to-
did. They did.
Did you have to bring that up?
They did. I can say I voted, so
Yeah, I did too. But the problem is that we have to realize we are vital members of our community and our society. We've got to let people know who we are,
Right.
what we believe, and once we do that, then we can then literally shape the narrative. And
Right.
once we do that, the politicians, we can put enough fire under the politicians that they will then protect our monuments, protect our heritage, and protect our liberty.
And
That's
just like
what
we're
we've
taking
got
back
to
the
do.
narrative, we need everyone watching. We need everyone else that's not watching to help us to take back the narrative. Just like this interview I had with this reporter from Virginia. I've been his ear and I gave him a history lesson, but is any of that going to make the airwaves or the paper?
Very little.
No.
Very little.
That's why we have to take back the narrative.
But we can. We do on the Confederate Legion. We do videos like this. We do Radio Free Dixie, radio ads. We have a wonderful Southern Defender brochure that you can give out. We have a lot of tools that we're asking SEV members and camps to take these tools and use them in our defense. Once the membership and camps start using these tools, you won't have to put a circle of police around monuments because all people will be on our side, not just a handful. It can be done. We can win this battle, but we've got to get busy. We've got to get serious about this effort. Commander, that's the end of part 1, and I think we'll be back for the part 2 here
believe
shortly
so.
for the June Commander's comment. God bless you all, and God save the South.